Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Blacktop Banter, and this is episode 51. So we're getting rolling here a little bit, and believe it or not, we have a repeat guest. So it's kind of nice. Been a minute since we've had somebody back on the podcast, and I have Ryan Behan from Ginger Cat Seal Coating. Ryan and I are going to be talking about kind of our software and kind of how we do stuff in the office, and how we keep building up to graduating maybe to different things. But first of all, I want him to introduce himself. That way, in case you haven't heard his voice or where he's from or what he does, you can hear it today.
Thanks for having me on, Marvin. My name is Ryan, and I run Ginger Cat Seal Coating out of Greenfield, Massachusetts. And we're basically just an all-purpose asphalt maintenance company. And you do a little bit of everything, mostly seal coating, crack sealing, residential and commercial, line striping, patching. So anything that has to do with maintaining and repairing asphalt is what we're all about.
Yeah. And I know, real quick, we should touch on your video, which we have talked about every time you and I have talked now for the last year. But I recently was at NPE and I had a chance to talk to Dave from Soft Heat, and your video caught fire last summer. Thankfully, none of your equipment caught fire, and I think that may be because of Soft Heat. So the idea of Soft Heat is that it takes the torch away from our direct fire melters. You retrofit Soft Heat to it, and it increases the heat time. When I was there, Dave was telling me that it could increase almost up to 4 times as fast. And I know your video was the Soft Heat retrofit unit versus a Rhino Works 30-gallon unit, which Rhino, in my eyes, was an improvement on the torch anyways from the beginning.
It was a big improvement originally, yes.
Yeah, and then the idea with Soft Heat was we're taking open flame away from it altogether, and we're doing a radiant heat, which is an infrared kind of heating apparatus. So real quick, we should touch on that, and you just kind of say the difference between them both, because people have been asking me if somebody had ever done a side-by-side comparison since I posted my video with Dave, and this will help kind of smooth some of that over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're both very nice units. Don't get me wrong. I'll start with just the Rhino Works. When I first originally got that unit, it was a major improvement over what I had, which is just, you shove the one torch into the end of the 30-gallon melter, and there's a big long flame, and it heats up, starting on one side and kind of heating up, and eventually the whole kettle gets heated up. The Rhino Works was an improvement on that because I had 2 burners internally. So you're kind of heating up more of an area underneath, and you get a little bit more of an even heating when you're starting your melter up. Both of those units are prone to flame outs. So you get into a part of your season when the wind picks up, or it just happens to be a windy day, you have a physical flame inside your unit, whether it be a 10-gallon melter push behind or a 30-gallon kind of mother kettle you put on a trailer or a truck. The wind would wreak havoc. It doesn't matter which unit I ended up using. The Rhino Works was great, but it would flame out on a windy day. I got keyed into the Soft Heat by a couple guys on the forums. Scott Morris actually was one guy that said he was looking into it, and I knew all about the infrared from like patching, patching units, but I'd never heard about it applied to a 30-gallon melter, and I thought that would be so cool. So Q2, like literally a couple years later, I was in the market for another 30-gallon melter, and I contacted Dave from Soft Heat, and we had a long conversation. And after doing some research, I just decided to purchase it. The purchase was super easy. You get right a hold of the guy. I emailed, and he emailed me back within a half hour, and then we ended up calling each other, talked for a little bit, purchased a unit. So what essentially it is I bought a retrofit Soft Heat kit. So he sends you basically a long unit. It's an infrared burner, which is not a flame. There's a bunch of it's
batting. It's like fiberglass batting.
Yeah, it's like this mat. It's a cloth though. It's a material, and that has flames running all over it, like little tiny flames, but you can't blow them out because it's all over this long piece. It's the whole length of your kettle.
Right.
And it's impossible to have the flame go out. It really, unless you have like a gas disruption, because it's still powered by propane. But so I retrofitted it. So I had an older 30-gallon Gingway melter, and the retrofit kit came with instructions. He's also got a YouTube video that you can watch. And the whole thing probably took about an hour and a half for me to make a couple cuts, slide the unit in, get everything all set up. And like an hour and a half later, I had this basically a brand new melter with a brand new heating element, an infrared heating element on the inside of it. And it is awesome. It is fast. It heats up your rubber evenly. Every little square inch of the bottom of that melter is getting heated up evenly rather than having hot spots from a flame touching it.
Right.
The only thing that I would say is just a little bit of something you really need to pay attention to is there is a learning curve regarding what settings to put the gas pressure on, because the gas pressure pretty much, will make it a certain temperature. So you really need to have an eye on that. But once you get the settings right, and once you're comfortable with heating, or I'm sorry, igniting it and just kind of watching it for a minute and making sure your PSI on your gas gauge is where it needs to be, it's definitely a superior unit. And as far as 30-gallon melters are concerned, which a ton of contractors have, and a lot of them use strictly just that, even for parking lots. The unit itself is amazing, and the technology lends itself really nicely to crack sealing. So it's been something that I have been totally. I love the unit, and I would definitely buy another one this year for sure.
I seen when we were there, he had a 55-gallon Gingway, and he was telling me it goes from about, and I'm pretty sure he was talking about 50-pound blocks, which he might not have been. He might have been talking about smaller, but either way, he said it with that retrofit onto a 55-gallon Gingway, it would take from 6 blocks an hour to 23 blocks an hour melted, and that's at a 55-gallon Gingway, you're almost talking like a Kravco 100. Like you're talking, that's a lot of bricks in an hour. So
it is.
I only have one question, and then we'll move on. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. We can always come back to it on another podcast episode, or a panel or something at some point, which I should do. Maybe I should make a panel at some point when we talk about direct fire melters. Maybe we'll have those. Maybe we'll have a couple contractors and a couple manufacturers on and stuff. But the only other question that I had was, have you started it at home and drove down the road with it and got to a job? Have you done that?
Yeah.
And does it work fine for that?
Every time I leave the yard, because what we do, my company in particular, is we have a prep crew that goes out in front of the seal coating crew.
Yep.
So the seal coating trailer has a 30-gallon melter attached to it. So when we get there, everything's ready to go. We don't prep.
Yeah.
Get there because it's already prepped. We get there, we crack seal, we seal coat. So
before you leave the yard, you turn it on and it's melting
every time.
And then on the way, it's melting. You get there and there's material ready to go. Almost.
I'm driving 70 miles per hour down the highway with this unit on, and I had some luck with previous units doing this, meaning the Rhino Works. It got to a point where those burners didn't hold up against flameouts.
Yeah.
I had the soft heat, and I used it from the middle of August until November of this year. And every single time we would leave, it would get turned on as we're leaving. And by the time we got there, because we realized what PSI settings were good for traveling with and whatnot, and it was always just ready to go. I maybe touched the valve a little bit with a flame just to kind of heat the valve up for a minute.
Yep.
And after that, it's flowing, and never had a problem with the flame out. I had a leaf blower pointed, a handheld leaf blower pointed on the inside of the chamber where this infrared unit sits.
Yep.
Full blast, and it
still didn't blow it out.
No, so that's great.
Okay. All right. We got to switch topics, so we'll be on this one all day. I know we will. And I literally got a hold of you for my own self, honestly, about our next topic. And the main topic of the podcast was supposed to be, I will mention when we do promote this, that you talk about the soft heat in it, just because they're going to shit a brick, man, when you say that you turn it on and drive to the job with it.
Oh, every time, every
That's so
single time we
stupid.
turn it on.
It's
Yep.
crazy. But I wanted to talk about Jobber. So it is a program that you use. We have spoke about it a little bit before. You are the only person that I know personally in our industry that uses it for their asphalt maintenance company. Uh, we're a little bit in the stone age still here. I did not go to school for accounting or software technology
Neither
about
did
any
I.
of this or anything. I just thought, hey, I would go out. When I first started, I was like, I would go out, do jobs, get a check, put it in my bank account. At the end of the year, I'll figure out how much I made, how much I spent, and I'll send that to my tax guy, and we're all good to go. What happened was we had somewhat of a success. So I needed a way to organize all these jobs to keep track of my estimates, my invoices, and all these things. A good friend of mine, Jerry Dolly at Dolly Asphalt out in Colorado Springs, we were on a forum one time, I believe we were all talking about this, and he said, hey, he uses Joist. It was free at that point. Since then, Joist has upped the charge a little bit, and there's a few different versions. We use Joist Pro, which is $150 a year, which is a bargain for me to keep myself organized somewhat versus
Right.
what I used to. The thing is, it doesn't have a lot of features that Jobber does, and some of these larger programs that are designed for our industry do. There are a few out there. Pavement Soft is probably the one that is specifically designed for us.
Right.
It's supposed to be an all-encompassing program. I have opened it. I have messed with it a little bit. It's way overkill for Wis-Coat for what we do. It's super intimidating, which they do coach you through. I've talked to Sean Boyce about it. He said, we will coach you. We'll help get you through there.
Yep.
Paul on their team as well said, hey, we'll coach you through it. We'll show you. I do know there are guys that use it and use it very well with their paving companies and their seal coating companies. But for us, we opened it up, and I have talked to a couple people that have tried it as well. And we're a blue collar, get your hands dirty industry.
Right.
And we work with our hands, man. And I think when you open that up, a program like that, it's intimidating, and guys just shut it down right away. And I think I'm probably guilty of that, to where, hey, my system's not broke, so I don't need to fix it. But because I've been in this industry, I do know that things come along that make people super efficient. And our conversation earlier was talking about that with, soft heat. You talk about auto layout and the lasers on stripers, super
Right.
efficient. I do know that eventually efficiency wins, right? And your clients want you to be more efficient and
Yes.
more efficient. And not only that, the more efficient you are, the less hours you pay your guys to do that said job, and you can either
Right.
pay them to do a different job or not pay them certain hours, or gals, for that job. So I'm sure it pays off in the long run. But I want to let's go back, okay, to when Ginger Cat first started.
Yeah.
What was your process? How you got started doing your? I don't want to say paperwork, because people always think that we mean your ins and outs for your accounting each month. I
Right.
mean like um,
From like the
your
moment a client contacts me to how do I track it and how do I end up getting back a hold of them and scheduling
yep, and
everything.
invoicing and everything.
Invoicing.
Yeah, sure.
Well, when I first started, I was just doing pen and paper. I probably had, I know I had a couple homemade spreadsheets on my home computer, but it was really nothing special. I know a lot of guys can get really in depth with creating an original spreadsheet that has all these functions on it. And I've never been one to be able to manipulate computers so easily as that.
Right.
So I ended up going with a Joist program as well. And this is probably about 3 years ago. And the Joist was nice because it was a place where I could kind of just a one-stop shop where I could kind of keep some information. I could create, a basic invoice with my company logo on it, and it made it so that I was just a little bit more legitimate looking in the eyes of the customer.
Right.
But it was not a place for me to track any of my expenses or track hours or stuff like that, or schedule, or
Yep.
I
Your
wasn't
work.
using it for that. So I It was 3 years ago, and I got to a point where I had lost a few contacts. I misplaced some information. When it came time to finding some financial information that I was looking for, it took me a lot longer to figure out where I had put it. So I was just I had just stuff all over the place. You know,
Yep.
It's not like I was neglecting to keep track of any of it, but where I was putting it was not in a central place.
Yeah.
And it really, I ended up getting kind of hurt by that for a little bit.
Yep.
So I had just kind of kept an ear out for these CRMs programs, customer relation management.
Yep.
It goes a lot more than just customer relations.
Sure.
It does, it's a numbers tracking program, a customer tracking program,
Mhm.
job tracking.
Mhm.
So I heard from a couple different guys, namely Cameron Hogate, who at the time he was running a seal coating company out in Alaska. He was plug-in jobber.
Okay.
So I said, I'm just going to check it out. They have a free version. I looked into it. I got the free version, and I was like, "This is really nice." The thing that stuck out to me, which is available on the free version, which is also, it goes right up through
all the
paid
versions, Mhm.
is the drag and drop scheduling. That changed my life as a contractor forever.
Explain that. So you have a client profile, the job profile itself. You
Right.
drag that job into the schedule, and there it is in your week or month or whatever. Correct?
There it is. So basically, on my schedule screen and I'm looking at it right here. You go into schedule, and it has the whole entire month, or you can do it by week. Or you can different
Whatever.
Whatever you want.
Mhm.
On the right-hand side, I have all of my unscheduled things, whether
Yep.
they're jobs, whether they are estimate requests I still have to
Uh-huh.
go out and do,
Uh-huh.
or they could just be a task, which
Uh-huh.
is not
Yeah.
an estimate request or
Clean
a
the
job,
seal
but just
tank.
something.
Right.
Yeah,
Clean the seal tank.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Go look at, maybe I have to touch something up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We had a rainstorm or something. Someone's got a
Mhm.
corner that washed away. I got to go
Mhm.
touch that up and make a task for it.
Mhm.
All these things are in this column. I can literally just take them, put them on the calendar where I think I might want them to be.
Mhm.
It's just drag and drop. I can set
Okay.
a time for it.
Mhm.
Or if I want to change it around instantly, I can it's literally just click on it, drag it
Mhm.
where I want it to go, and have it there. And then once it's on there, I can click into whether it's a job or an estimate request or a task, click into it. All my details are right there. I can edit them as I see them. I can edit anything on the fly.
As it changes too, you can edit it as it changes. Okay.
As it changes. It's nice because there's so much automation on this program. It makes things that maybe you don't really think about doing, like following up on an estimate request,
Uh-huh.
or sending a reminder of they have a past due payment. All these things are automated, and you can just customize it to so many levels. I can send 1 or 2 reminders. I can space out when the reminders come. I can send reminders to my customers, to myself.
Okay.
It's just amazing. And then, just tracking all this information, tracking when I'm supposed to do a job, track it. You can track what you use on a job.
Okay.
As far as materials.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I personally have not done that yet, but you can.
But you could do it.
You could do it.
You get into it. Before we go on, I don't want to forget this question. So, your users, do you have multiple users that can see that schedule? So let's say we have a crew lead. We want them to be able to see the schedule. They can pop their info, like their sign in. They can sign in, look at it, and be like, okay, we're going to be here this week. And then the office as well, like that person can see it as well, right? Okay. So essentially, it's like a base camp inside of a Joist.
It's a base camp inside of a Joist, inside of a QuickBooks, inside of a Road Warrior, which is like a routing.
Do you use that? Do you use QuickBooks separately now? And then
we don't use QuickBooks right now.
Do you use paper for your accounting? For your accounting, do you use paper like ins and outs? I do it on paper.
You can track all your expenses right in Jobber.
Oh, so everything's in there.
Everything is in there.
Okay, I got you.
It's literally a one-stop shop. I mean, I know that there are some guys that use QuickBooks because they.
Yeah, I know there's guys especially in the lawn care and landscape industry, they use Jobber and then QuickBooks as well.
Right. And they are compatible. You can upload everything from your QuickBooks
Yeah.
into your Jobber.
I want
But
to.
we don't feel the need to do that. So
I want to ask you one question. When you went from Joist that had all your information in there, and this is probably something that hinders me from making a leap too. I'm worried that all that information that I've compiled for the last 5 years using Joist, I'm going to have to manually move all that information over to Jobber, as far as my client base and things like that, which it can be done, I'm sure. But
yes.
I'm sure it's a monumental task, and you just put somebody on it and have them do it. Is that what you guys did when you moved?
We ended up manually entering in a decent amount of past clients. I have not been in business quite as long as you, so our
Right.
master list was not
Ours
nearly
is
as
going to be
long.
big. Yeah, ours is going to be big.
And I don't know for sure if there's a way to upload it directly, but I will say one of the other, maybe this is top 3 things for this Jobber software, is the customer service is phenomenal.
Yes.
The chat, you open up a chat and within 2 or 3 minutes, you have someone chatting with you.
That's what I hear.
And it's just, and they know what to do. If you're like, I don't know where to click, like how do I get this set up? They guide you step by step, and it's so quick and it's just like a really nice personalized experience.
Cool.
That is like, that right there is worth a ton of money to me, to have customer
Instantly.
service that instantly, like
You don't even have to YouTube it. You can just figure it out. Yeah.
Right.
There's no Google
Exactly.
There's no going to Google and looking through the frequently asked questions and then
No.
getting a robot when you hit the clock.
Right.
That tries to somehow mitigate you through a funnel down to your answer, which is completely not even the answer that you were looking for, even though you answered every question.
No, you open up the chat and you type your question, and then within a minute or two, someone's like right there.
Hey man, how do we help you?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love it.
So what we were talking about was, how it's all in one. You said something about you can keep track of hours too. Was that right?
Yeah. So basically, we, I have myself, I have my wife, who's the lead administrator, and I have 2 guys. We all have Jobber on our smartphones. I can customize what each team member can see on their phones. But they clock in, they clock out on their phone. And from what I've been told by my guys, it's wicked easy. Both of them have had other jobs in the past that they were given a program to use on their smartphone for like clocking in and whatnot. And this one by far is the most streamlined and easy to look at, and easy to figure out. So all of their hours are tracked. We can generate a payroll report to send to our payroll person at the end of, so we do a bi-weekly pay, and at the end of every week and a half, we send out our information.
Dang.
So all the hours are tracked. You can activate it where your guy can, so he clocks in at the start of the day, but when he gets to the first job, he can also start a timer on that job.
Okay.
And then when they're done, you can really kind of get down to the nitty gritty and track all this stuff if you really, really want to.
Yeah.
We have not really explored getting that
right.
detail.
But if you needed to for a job report, you could. Like we send out a manual job report. If I don't go out with Chris, he'll take just. I actually had a good friend of mine, Almond Landscape, and they had one put together, Caleb and Brittany, and I got theirs, and it was like a physical job report. Like I wanted to know what time of day you got there, what the temperature was, what the blacktop looked like, what we did, what we put down, and they're great to have. We have them. There's a file cabinet Chris has. He probably hates that I try to make him fill them out, but even at the end of the season, dude, no one gives a crap. You're like, dude, I'm not doing this. But and that's mainly because we're covered in sweat and sealer and junk, and we're grabbing a pen, and they're just like, I know you've seen pieces of paper with your fingerprint on them from the sealer and stuff. Like they're all over it, so they're filthy. That is also, I mean, the way you're explaining it through Jobber, that's a great thing to have. You could have all that timer, figure out your job report, even for that day. Then he would only be filling out one for the day versus, each separate job, which you could look through there. So I would like for, it'd be nice to get somebody from Jobber to come on and explain that and share their screen and show us what all we can do and everything like that too. But like I said, what we do now with Joist, let's say the call comes in, and I'm just doing this for comparison between Jobber and Joist because I really like the idea of Jobber. And there's just not that many people in our industry that use it. So that's why I wanted to pick your brain about it. I do want to jump up in software because I know that we are lacking in some of those things, right?
Mhm.
And rather than jump in and using two programs, if I can just use one, that would be ideal.
Right.
And if it's not intimidating, and I would much rather, it's like anything else, dude. It's like, let's say you went sledding, right? And then all of a sudden somebody's like, well, now we're going freestyle skiing. And you're
Yeah.
just like,
Well, I just learned
maybe,
how to sled.
yeah. I was like, dude, I kind of like sledding. Like, yeah, but you
Yeah.
can't jump, you can't do anything, you can't do it, you can't go faster, you can't go slower, you can only sled,
Right.
right? Like, it's like I want to be able to, but I also don't want to break my neck, break my legs and end up in tragedy. So I'm trying to figure out a stepping stone, right? A way to do this where we get to a point to where if I have to hire somebody, they're like, oh, this is the next step, right?
Mhm.
And you've set yourself up perfect for it. But I don't want to have to do that, right? And a lot of small business owners, contractors in our industry don't want to have to do that at a certain
Right.
point. They would like to be able to step themselves until they get to that point.
They want to do it and they want to make that decision on their own.
Right, right. And to realize, hey, we're successful enough, we can pay somebody to do this. And
Yeah.
I have set it up efficiently so that we can. So what we do with Joist now, and like I said, I still do my paperwork. Like I'm gonna turn this so you can see. The listeners aren't gonna be able to see, unless they go to YouTube. See all those?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's a
those,
lot of boxes.
it is a lot of boxes. So those are all the years, all the
Yeah.
info from our receipts for each year, the different businesses. If I look up there, it goes back to 2012. So that's 10 years worth right here.
Yep.
There are other boxes that are somewhere else as well.
Well, I will say one thing that may be a consideration for you is that we, not all of our past customers got entered into Jobber.
Right. And some we let go to where we just knew that they're
Right.
no longer a client, right?
Right. I mean,
Right.
as people maybe contact you a second or third time for repeat business, that's when you can enter them into the Jobber
Right.
and just kind of be entering in fresh customers as you're going.
Does it allow you to update? Like, let's say you have Ryan, let's say you have a client that you've done 3 years ago and you did X amount of square feet because they had new pavement, excuse me. And then now they want to do everything. Does it show that update, or do you have to put a little note there that says that? Or
you have separate. Anytime they contact you and you make a new estimate request or a new job, it's a separate thing. So there's a tab called clients. You type in your client name and it shows you all of the things that they have contacted.
Okay, so let's
done with them.
Let's say you've estimated it 4 times. When you click clients, it shows all 4 estimates that you've done.
If you've gone there 4 times and you've done 4 different estimates, it'll be there 4 times.
Okay, that's kind of what I was curious about because ours doesn't quite do that with Joist. Like it'll show you the client and their info, but then you'll have to go to estimates to search it, and then it'll show you if you have estimated it 3 times.
Yeah, you can search for it. The main way to really get everyone's info is just to go to client
and then click it, and you can watch
it and
all the history.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
So our current thing that we do, and I want you to go after I do a rundown of how we do it, then I want you to do it as well.
Okay.
And then we'll see the difference between Joist and Jobber, which some people, obviously you could do this without Joist if you really wanted to hand write your estimates still and deliver them, and then write down your client's info on a Rolodex or whatever you used to back in the day. Obviously you could still do that. There are businesses around me that are running businesses, which were pretty rural, that I know are doing it because that's how they've done it since the 80s and 90s, early 90s, whenever. Right. So they still do it. I know they do. And it's just, if it's not broke, don't fix it. They don't see the need to be more efficient.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's companies that make millions and millions that started off doing it that way. And but it's a newer way to do it. So why not give it a shot,
But I got a feeling that if somebody wanted to outwork them, they definitely could with technology. If they really wanted to try to topple that giant from that area, and they were still doing that, they definitely could, just because they didn't reinvest in technology, or the people that understand it to make them more efficient. They just didn't need, maybe they didn't want that for their business. Maybe they don't want to hit X amount of dollars. They just want to be able to create a living and have an easy go at it. And there they are. So let's restart, and I'll go through what happened. So we get a call, right? It goes to our separate work cell phone that's here. It goes to a voicemail. We check that. We write that down on a carbon copy. That gets handed into the estimate box. So I'll take that out, put a list of estimates together that I have to go do. I will go check them, write down all the information. Sometimes I don't go out and look if it's really, really far away and I know they just want striping or whatever. If it's seal coating and crack filling, I put boots on the ground. But so I'll put all that out. I'll come back, and in Joist, I put that together. I used to not. I used to actually use, I wish I had it sitting next to me, a carbon copy estimate sheet, like a proposal, and I would carbon copy, write those down, leave that with the client. I would take the carbon copy. That way, if they called, we knew what we had to do. I don't do that anymore. Everything goes through Joist. So I open Joist up, put an estimate together. I'll ask the client if they want it emailed, which is an option. You can email your Joist estimate to the client, or I'll ask them if they want it sent in physical mail, which I said we're pretty rural. A lot of farmers, they don't even check email. So we'll send it in the mail to them, and then they get it. And then if they want it, it comes back, or they call me or email me. We switch that over as a job to do. Now I'll print that out, not as an invoice, but just as a job to do. I'll print that estimate out, and then that goes onto our scheduling. I actually pin the schedule or set the schedule like on the ground, and we write it all down, or we use a whiteboard and we'll write it down. Then when we complete the project, it turns into an invoice. I'll do that in Joist, flip it over to an invoice, and I'll either do the same thing. I'll email that to the client, or I'll print it out and mail them the invoice. They send a check, they direct deposit, they pay with credit card, whatever. We keep track of that. It goes into the paid, and then we're done, good to go. Their information automatically goes into the Joist database once I entered the estimate in there. You can go back and search by the client, their name, or you can go to the estimate and see what happened. But the estimate, once it's changed to an invoice, it's in an invoice tab too, so you can get both. Well, the thing that's a pain in my neck that we have to do, so that's the process, right? The process is done. The thing that's a pain in my neck that we have to do is I have to go to the clients, and underneath it shows their information. It doesn't show the work information or anything like that. It just shows their information. I have to manually go into the notes section and update. We serviced this client again in 2021. It was X amount of square feet for X amount of dollars. And I have to like write that in. It's not like I can choose tabs and things. So today, we're doing that process. It's done. It got done today. But yeah, that's the pain in my neck. It's not like where you're like, hey, everything's underneath there, right? So I would love to be able to click their name and say, oh yeah, we did it this year, this year, that, this year, this year, that, and I'm good to go.
Yeah. No,
so
I mean,
what about yours?
A little different.
Tell me how it goes.
Well, I mean, the contact is, we get people calling us, we get people, going through email and whatnot. So what's nice about Jobber is that you can embed your request form onto your Facebook business page, your business email, your business website. So someone types in seal coating near me, right? Ginger cat seal coating pops up.
Before you go on, I will also want to say, like, people send us emails too, and like we'll get a request for our website, or we'll get a DM or something. So it's not just a phone call and a voicemail. If it comes through a website, or it comes through my email, or it comes through my DM, I grab that pad, or somebody grabs that pad and writes that down and goes into my estimate box too. So go ahead, keep going.
So you don't have to field information from various sources now. You don't have to make sure you're looking at your Facebook business messages. You don't have to, look at your website and this and that. Anytime that someone wants to do business with me, this is like if they're coming at it from a digital standpoint, they've looked at the website and they want to do business. They click on the estimate request form. whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on my website, they fill it out. It's really, really simple. It just asks you what exactly it is you want from us as a service, crack sealing, seal coating, line striping, asphalt patching. They click that and they put their pertinent information in, basically their email address, their physical address, their name, and their phone number. And they click submit, and it all comes into Jobber.
Okay.
So I get a notification saying that someone's requesting that they want an estimate from us.
Yep.
So that's super nice, because
That's
before
crazy.
I was fielding phone calls, I was fielding Facebook messages, and I was all trying to keep all of the information that was coming in one place. Jobber just does that automatically. It's funneled right into Jobber. So from that point on, as soon as they make an estimate request, an automated email gets sent to them or texted to them, saying, we got your request. We are going to come take a look at your property, essentially. And you'll, within 7 to 14 days, you'll have an estimate from us.
Yeah.
So at that point, I can see that an estimate request came in. I go into Jobber, I turn that request into an actual estimate, which makes it so that it can go on my schedule, and it shows where I'm going to need to go and what kind of service they're looking for. So I know right off the bat when I get there, they're looking for an asphalt patch and then some seal coating.
Okay.
So I kind of look and I can, you know what I mean? I have an idea of what I'm kind of walking into.
Yeah.
I don't physically write anything down when I'm on an estimate. The Jobber comes with a really, really nice app for your smartphone that you can use in the field.
Yep.
I take down all the information and I plug it into my phone.
Okay. Do you plug it in on that app, or do you plug it in like in
the app,
the notes section? So is there so on the app there's a thing, jobs to be viewed, or like estimates to give, something like that? You made your own file, or how does that work?
So my wife, she will, so that the nice thing about this too is that you can assign these things to certain users. So I have 4 users on my program. I have me, my wife, my 2 guys. Those guys will get assigned some jobs for the day. So all they see are the jobs that pops up on their smartphone.
Okay.
They wake up, they come to work, and we got 3 places we got to go. Here we go. For me, I might go out and do some prep, and then all of a sudden I see on my schedule, I also have 5 estimates to do. So now I'm on to my estimates. I click into the estimate, I click the GPS button, and it brings me right to that location. I go there, I do my measurements, I kind of survey the scene, I put all that information into the app.
Yep.
I save it, and it goes right into the program so that all that information is there. From that point, with all that information that I've inputted, my wife will will send them the estimate request, or we'll send them the estimate, should I say. Okay.
Yep.
She'll send them the estimate.
Whether that's on paper or in email, right?
Now, if they don't have an email or they don't have a text, we will physically mail them a piece of paper.
Okay.
But it's got all the line items on it. It's got seal coating. It's got, it's
crack
got crack sealing, got the power washing, asphalt, whatever it is.
No, that's a topic for another day. We have to get on that one too, about power washing and how you guys adapted to use that.
It makes it so the customer can see, this is what I'm going to be paying for. And I will give, I don't tell how I came up with my prices, but each line item is individually priced.
Okay, that's fine.
And it goes down. So that's really nice and easy for them to look at.
Yeah.
If they don't, so that the estimate has been sent out. And I'll say, Marvin, that probably about 75% of the estimates we send out, the client or the prospective client has provided an email address or a cell phone number that I can text them.
Yeah.
And
to be honest with you, some clients, that's the deal maker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but the same way that you wouldn't pull on to a commercial client's property when 84, 83 Datsun that's rusted out and your, cans are falling out when you open the door. Sometimes, like, if you're showing up at a place to hand them a piece of paper, it almost has that same vibe, because they're like, dude, we don't go at that pace. And if you do, this is not going to cut it.
I don't feel comfortable. I mean, a lot of my business is residential seal coating.
So same way. Yeah,
If they're
same
not
way.
home, there's not anyone to give it to, and I don't feel
Right.
comfortable leaving it
Hanging
on their
there.
property for them to find or
Yeah.
to blow
Yeah.
away. Or
You're right. Hope you found it.
I used to put the estimate in the mailbox, and then I found out quickly the mail carriers, if it's
Don't
not
like that.
federal mail, they'll take it right out. I'd be like,
Yeah.
put something in someone's mailbox.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's that vibe like we were talking about. It makes you feel that some people, it makes them feel like you have your crap together and you're a reputable
Right.
business when you handle business
Yep.
like that nowadays versus the old
Yep.
way. Not, like I said, it's not us making that assumption or anything. I know guys that do do great work. It's just the
Yep.
client base has changed nowadays.
It's
You have
totally
to
changed.
understand that. Yeah, people have to understand that. And residential clients, more than likely, they work at a place that functions that way. So
Yeah.
that's a reason they're contacting you that way, because that's what's
Right.
normal. When you do a different way where you're calling their house trying to get a hold of them and tell them the price, or you're sending them something in the mail or dropping something off, that's abnormal. So it already has a weird feel to it.
It's already got a weird feel.
Right. So
they'll have a text show up on their phone.
Yeah.
They might be on their lunch break and I got a text and it says,
Yep.
your quote is ready to review from Ginger Cat Seal Coating.
Yeah.
They hit the green button, it pops right up with any pictures I might want to add on to it.
Yep.
The pricing, and then it's like, okay, this looks like I want to do this. They hit accept basically.
Yep.
And then you can do a little digital signature.
Yep.
And then they push, and then it comes right back to us. This person wants to do the job. So now all of a sudden it's turned from an estimate request into an estimate and then into a job.
Okay.
Which all of that is so easy to look at on the scheduling calendar. I wish you could see it, and you could just manipulate it however you want. It's really nice.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure they'll, and I believe they do a free trial, if I'm not mistaken, right? So
they do.
If you're listening to the podcast, Jobber hasn't, paid for us to say or do anything about promoting this. It's generally just my curiosity. And I know some guys, obviously, in the landscape and lawn care industry. If you've followed me for any amount of time, a lot of them use Jobber. That's how I know there's a free trial of it. I'm not trying to sell anybody on anything. But I do know that it's a smart move. And it's just like, dude, if you're going to jump to do something, this is probably a good one to go for. It's not too complicated. There's a free trial. If you don't need everything, all giant bells and whistles, it's probably a good fit. That being said, we're in a position which everybody, I've always been transparent with what we do and how we do things, and that we're rural. So a lot of times we're behind guys that are in front, right? So it isn't the fact that we're not big enough for it. It's just that I wanted to grow and get us there to get to that point, right? So it's not, I've known about Jobber forever. And there's great, as I said before, there's great programs within our industry that are specifically designed for it as well. I don't believe that is us right now. It may be in 5-10 years, maybe it'll be in 3 years, maybe, so maybe I'll be getting somebody else on the podcast to tell us about the next step. And they'll say, yeah, if you go from Jobber to this, it's really easy. And if I was like, well, I wanted to go to Joist to that, and they're like, well, there's a big learning curve. You know what I mean? So there's a right way to weigh it out and look at everything. There's no harm in having conversations and looking at everything out there that's available to us. So I think that for anybody that has been in our boat, I've watched Ginger Cat grow. You've watched Wis-Coat grow. We've been friends for a long time. I think that either one of these are a right move at a certain time, right? So for me, that's why the general curiosity about Jobber came up, just because I wanted to know, like, dude, what is it? So as we're closing and getting close to the end, I wanted to ask you, I always ask somebody for a piece of advice, right? I used to do, I don't have them with me. They got lost in the move. I'll find them. They're pod decks where they ask just a random crazy ass question, which makes stuff fun. But my fail safe for now is asking advice. So if somebody is listening, right, and they don't, let's just say that they are looking to upgrade, right? When I'm not going to say what level they're at, but they realize they would need, if there's a better software, then that's the next step up they should look. What advice would you give somebody that's curious about Jobber or any program in general? upgrading to the next
I
step.
think you just got to do your research is really what it comes down to. And I really firmly believe with going with your gut instinct. If you feel like you're kind of falling short in a particular area of business, like right now, I won't go into any great detail, but there are a couple of things where as a businessman, I feel like I really need to instinctually, I feel like I gotta
Yep.
get better at,
Yep.
and one of them is organization. But I would just say, just do your research and don't just instantly just purchase the top tier level of anything without talking to someone first or trying it out. And that's why kind of with this Jobber software, it's nice. It's a nice natural type of program to potentially get into because you can start with the free trial. And then there is a very budget friendly version. And then if you want, there's more levels, if you feel like, oh, there's something I wanted to do here. I wanted to add more pictures, or I wanted to, have the GPS routing, but it's not doing it. You can step up, and maybe you don't need those things, so you don't need to be paying the extra money. But it's just it's a nice piece of software that is able to grow with you no matter where you are at. And I firmly believe that some huge companies could very well benefit from a piece of software like this. It's just all about figuring out what they offer and doing the research and asking some questions. And that has been the hugest thing for me as a businessman is reaching out or just observing about what people are doing and what's working and what's not working, and going with my gut, and being like, oh, I really feel like I'm kind of being a schlub on this particular aspect of my business. I'm not going to just keep on being a schlub because I'm afraid that it might be hard as a transition to get better at that. The transition is always a little bit hard. You can't be scared of trying something new and maybe having it feel uncomfortable at first, but if it works out for you in the long run, you could be flying high after that. Who knows,
Yeah. And I think anybody gets to a certain point in business, they understand that you have to get uncomfortable in order to grow. That's just how it is. I've watched a lot of people really, I won't say any names, I guess. I was going to, but I shouldn't, I guess. Because they've probably said it themselves too. They are in a shell, right? They're introverts, and they came to the hard realization that the only way to grow was to come out of that shell, ask some questions, get into some uncomfortable situations and figure stuff out. So I think that's the biggest thing as us. And we'll transition into how people can find you. Us as members of the asphalt maintenance community and social media community is that we have always understood that if we were truly going to help people, we had to be open, right? And you had to be willing to help and be approachable. And that's the hardest part, is that a lot of people have trouble swallowing their pride because there used to be a thing where they were worried that it made them look dumb. And dude, I have no problem telling people I'm dumb. Like I want them to know that they are going to have to talk slow and explain it to me in detail, because I need to understand it. I've realized that I may only have one shot at understanding it, right, from them, from the horse's mouth, or however they say it. So I appreciate you being able to do that. You've always been approachable. I know that people have been able to reach out whenever to ask any kind of questions. We're going to have them approach you about 2 questions, I'm guessing, from this podcast. One about a melter and one about Jobber. So how do people find you, Ryan? If you're in any of the seal coating groups, type in Ryan's name and you'll find him. If you're on Facebook, you type in Ryan Behan, you'll find him. Those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of you, I would imagine. But are there any other ways?
Give me a personal message. I'm not huge for social media for my own personal presence so much, but like you can go on my website, gingercatsealcoating.com. You can go on a Facebook forum, the groups, US Seal Coaters or Asphalt Seal Coating Coalition. I like those too. Sometimes guys can be a little bit crusty on those forums, but
that's a kind word. That's a very kind word to use.
If you need to ask a question and you really want someone to not just blow smoke up your butt, or
some people are looking just to take shots at somebody. They're waiting for somebody to say something so that they can just grill them. Doesn't matter if it's right, wrong, or whatever. So the best bet is to send one of us a DM, right? Or
send a direct message. you can, whatever. It's Ryan Behan, Behan is, if you want to Facebook friend me or send me a message through one of the forums, I will always be there to give you the best help I can, because I'm not by any means, I don't know everything, and I never will, but I can help with some things, and I would love to. So
yeah. I think we both feel indebted to the community for helping us grow. That's the only reason I even fired up social media and starting groups and doing different things, is because I wanted to learn. And I think that if somebody's reaching out, asking to learn, you should be reaching back, trying to help as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So that's it. That's where you find Ryan from Ginger Cat Seal Coating. This is Blacktop Banter, episode 51. I believe we're going to get to 100 episodes before the end of the year. I can feel it. Cool. All right. So that's it. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast again.
Anytime. Thank you for having me on here. It's an honor.
Dude, no worries. I know where to find you, and I know what you're about if I have to ring the bell again. So for Ryan and myself, we want you to seal it, pave it, stripe it, and kill it. Peace.